Legacy. Wow, that is a word that it's almost a trigger.
Yeah.
Right? Like in family,
Yeah.
like, oh yeah, my mom was supposed to leave me money, but she left my brother money. The family's fighting over the money. And that is not what we're talking about here, is it?
That's right. It's not referring to an inheritance, although that can be a part of the experience. But I'd like to broaden the conversation around what legacy is.
Mm-hmm.
And to do that, we need to be able to have conversations about our values and the traditions and the conventions that govern our lives. And when folks have a background of abuse or there's a toxic legacy, there's a history of very difficult relationships and emotional abuse and all those difficult experiences that get handed down from generation to generation.
Right.
It is time to look at and the work that I do. Most people are surprised that you can do that.
Yeah, right? You can
Yeah, I mean,
change a whole family structure,
that's right.
people have
That's
passed
right.
on. That's like, what? What are you talking about?
It's amazing to sit with an individual and when they realize, I have a choice. I don't have to put up with this.
I love that.
And I don't have to sacrifice my health
Yeah.
to relationships just because we have a blood connection.
Yes, right. It's all about finding your soul family. It's great if your birth family is your soul family. Yay, you. That's plus plus. You get extra points for that one.
That's right. Well,
It doesn't work that way usually.
I'm glad that you mentioned that because that is another powerful realization. Not only do folks need to realize that they can rewrite the story of their lives and rewrite their legacy, but that if the family, the first tribe, doesn't provide them with the relationships to support them in their life journey, they're not stuck. And that's a huge realization. Most folks don't realize that they have the ability, they have the skills, they have the choice to rebuild that from scratch.
Mm-hmm.
And when we have the opportunity to start from scratch and to let go of the past, now we get to ask ourselves, well, if we let go, then what is it that we prefer to put in place? What kinds of relationships do we want? What kinds of values do we want to live by? What kinds of ideas do we want to align to? And because now we're the authors of new legacy.
Yes, I love
So,
that.
yeah, and what do we get to put in place? What does that look like? What shape should it take? So, yeah, it's a huge turning point. And when I work with people on this aspect of the journey, this can take months to flesh out because they haven't given themselves permission to explore what that might look like for them as individuals.
Yeah, absolutely. I even did some work with a shaman, and she had my ancestors like in a big long line, and told me like to go up to somebody and talk to them, and I like that wasn't happening. It was like, oh. And she goes, okay, so let's just here's a big purple ball, just roll that ball down the line of people, and let's just see who picks it up. And then you go talk to them. It was like, that was hard stuff. And it was very interesting. And evidently there's this whole lineage of sadness in my mother's family.
Yes.
Yeah, it's really interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting. And a lot of folks experience that, but they never really face it. So because it's not addressed, they're not able to move on to new story
Yeah.
and to create a new story. So, in the part of the world that I come from, there's such an acceptance for that kind of a legacy. The melancholy is a cultural value.
Right.
It's actually endorsed. They believe in the tradition that I come from, and in my family as well, that you need the melancholy for the artistry. If you don't have that, then you lose your creativity. And I've broken through that barrier. In my experience, I've been able to create an incredible amount of creativity in my life and to explore creativity without the sadness. And, sadness is another word for depression. But it doesn't need to be part of the story for the future if we don't want to include it.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. I love that.
So, and the next aspect of the journey, of course, is we find an incredible freedom once we get underway, because we get to be ourselves finally.
Yes.
We get to investigate life based on who we are.
Yeah.
And this is so valuable. Most people just feel an incredible amount of energy moving forward.
Yes, much healthier history.
That's right. Enthusiasm, passion for life. That's where the freedom comes, because we're exploring new relationships, new possibilities.
Yeah.
We're inviting new people into our lives, so it can be very freeing when we surround ourselves with people that are uplifting.
Yeah, it's really cool because the people that we do surround ourselves with, they're holding space for us in a positive way when we're seeking our soul family and joining up with our soul family. And that's very powerful too. And it does in the end raise your vibration. They even say, like, you look at the incomes of the 5 people, closest to you, your 5 friends, whatever, and then average it out. You'll never like make more than that. It's like the same idea, so you want more energy, and you want to vibrate higher and blah blah,
Yeah,
up level spiritually as well. Then think about who you are letting into your inner circle. That inner circle is of choice, and it's not like you need 50 million people, right? So
that's right. It's just that inner circle that counts. And because we've never been deliberate about it, we've just assumed it's who happens to be next to us. That it's been so challenging and so painful. I'm not saying it's like this for everyone, but every person has some aspect of a negative legacy to face. So for some people, when they do this work, what I hear back is that they have the privilege of reshaping their existing inner circle, their tribe. But in the majority of clients that I work with, there's too much resistance and they're unable to do that. We can invite folks to the table for change. We can invite our first tribe into a new vision, but we can't force them to partake if they don't want to participate. So the choice most of my clients are left with is having to do it from scratch. And then what interesting thing that I find is that when they're willing to create new legacy and they're willing to surround themselves with new tribe, oftentimes years will pass and their first tribe sometimes stands by thinking, I like what you're having. I wish I could have some of that. Can I come around?
Oh my gosh, yes.
Yeah. And that's something most people never consider, but it can only happen when we're willing to let go.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, another thing about legacy, because I do the book in 30 days with clients, is skeletons in the closet kind of thing, and like
Yeah,
bringing them out.
yeah,
Uh, that changes a lot, and it also really clarifies the boundaries of like who's really, joining you in the up level and who's not, and who's
yeah,
pushed back from family. And there are people that won't move forward in life until somebody dies. They're like waiting for somebody to die. Then they can use their own voice. Then they can be free. And it's like, really? Like, who has to die so that you can be you? Right?
but do you know what that's about? It's about waiting for permission.
Exactly. Exactly. And so I
So
think permission
yeah,
to give yourself permission, right? Adriana, that's your book.
right. So oftentimes we don't really think about that consciously because we we interpret someone's death as permission to be ourselves. How sad is that?
It is sad.
Yeah. So we want to move away from that mindset. And there's a whole other skill set beyond this point when we finally give ourselves the freedom. Maybe permission is also another word for freedom. Just like you said, to explore new connection. So an outgrowth or a next phase would be putting those connections in place, because what will happen now is, because we've let go of negative legacy and toxic or abusive or hurtful legacy,
Right.
we can now bond on the basis of positive experience.
Yep, absolutely. And it really reminds me of the work that your husband Paul Smit does with the neurological addiction.
Yeah.
It's, just being all in the negative, and then you're talking about like how that negative is like even hooked up to the extended family. And I just love the work that you both do individually as well as together. Talk about connection.
Yeah, it's when we talk about connection, in this conversation with my clients, I ask them to look at how they bond and how they define bonding with those that are closest to them. And it does take a bit of thought. It takes a lot of introspection and reflection to build a connection that is deliberate and that it is centered around what you consider most vital to your life. But it is possible. There's a certain skill set involved in that, because there's going to be a constant dance
Yep.
back and forth.
Yep.
Um, it has to do with how we negotiate for what it is that we need in such a way that no one loses
Yeah.
and
Right.
everyone benefits.
Very much in the energy of the new paradigm, the new world. Yeah, that's
That's
already.
right.
I love it.
That's right.
Thank you.